Welcome back, folks, to Hashtag AskGSM, the weekly Money Bag video where I answer your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube right here in this video form. Without further ado, lots of awesome questions this week. Let's get right down to it. Pig Window from YouTube, their question was, how far do you think the Rusev character could go in WWE? I personally think the sky is the limit for him, but he might have to tweak his gimmick a little so that he is a little less associated with Russia and more as an individual. I definitely see where you're coming from and why a lot of people compared him to Vladimir Kozlov earlier on in his run when he first came on the main roster back in April, the night after WrestleMania, was that he was billed as an undefeated guy. I mean, he's gone undefeated for the last 6 to 7 months. He's from a foreign country. He has a mouthpiece. Vladimir Kozlov did not have a mouthpiece. I think Lana is amazing in her role. She's a lot to look out, obviously, for the guys and whatnot, so I think she's going to be big on her own when she breaks off on her own as a separate act, but as for Rusev, I think he does have a lot of potential. The thing is not with the character as it is right now, because I think they're really catching fire with the character. He goes out there, he gets a lot of heat. Winning the United States Championship last week, I thought was the best course of action. And they're really doing well by the Rusev character. I thought they might have him, rush him right into the main event, and they still might do that. Like problems with guys like Bray Wyatt and Del Rio and Sheamus, you go right down the list, Jack Swagger. They push these guys to main event so freaking quickly, and after they win their first world title, they drop it. Where do you go from there? The only place to go from there is back down. So that's why a lot of those characters, I mean, Sheamus has been in the company for 5 years now, but a guy like Bray Wyatt feuded with John Cena no more than a year into his run in WWE, and where is he? What's he doing right now? I mean, I know he's feuding with Dean Ambrose, but I think someone else asked me a question about that, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But Bray Wyatt, the character, has been so damaged by John Cena and feuding with him, and the matches weren't good. The feud wasn't all that great. So I'm hoping they don't take that course, they don't take that path with Rusev. I'm hoping that the United States Championship is kind of his way to build up to the main event scene. I don't know if I could see him as a world champion, but as United States Champion, I mean, I always complain all the time about superstars not being properly built up. A guy like a Shawn Michaels is the perfect example of a guy that went from a tag team to a mid-card to the main event scene. And granted, yeah, Rusev didn't kick it off in a tag team scenario, but he's slowly ascending the card by beating losers like Big E, then Jack Swagger, then slowly working his way up by facing guys like Mark Henry, and then Big Show, and then Sheamus, all former world champions, and now he's United States Champion. I mean, one can make the argument that he's above the U.S. Championship at this point in time in his career after being undefeated for 6 to 7 months, and the U.S. title doesn't mean anything in 2014, but I think it's a good way of, furthering his character. But like you said, is the sky the limit for him? Possibly. Like I said before, it's not really in what they're doing right now with him. I'm more concerned with the aftermath. Like Bray Wyatt had a great build-up for the most part. And then the aftermath after his feud with Cena, he did nothing. He had a good feud with Jericho, but he was never really allowed to go over. They never really had the creative control that they should have during the course of that feud. Their feuds, their matches and promos weren't as great as they possibly could have been. So it's all about the aftermath. After Rusev gets beat for the first time, whoever may be against John Cena, a Ryback maybe, which is some people have petitioned for. I don't know about that, but yeah, Cena, a Ryback, or whoever, Daniel Bryan, even if he comes back, Roman Reigns. So Rusev loses his first match. Where do you go from there? That's all about the aftermath. You have to keep on booking him strong, like Vladimir Kozlov. Remember, let's go back to 2008, 2009. The guy went undefeated for about a year. He was defeated by Shawn Michaels, and remember that match where he was supposed to face Undertaker at WrestleMania? Shawn Michaels beat him. Undefeated streak over. The guy wasn't even on the fucking card that year. He wasn't even at WrestleMania. I think he might have been like a lumberjack in like the pre-show Battle Royal. But this guy was like contending for the WWE title in late 2008 and went to go on to do nothing at WrestleMania like 2 weeks after he got beaten. So it's all about the aftermath with Rusev. I'm really hoping that's not the course of action they take with him, because I think he's very talented, more so than Vladimir Kozlov. I think he's much more enjoyable in the ring and has had better matches than Kozlov ever did, my opinion anyway. So it's all about the aftermath with Rusev and how far it can go in WWE. Justin G, his set of questions this week kicks off with this one question. I was watching Royal Rumble 2003 on the WWE Network for only $9.99 a month to see what you did there, and I saw Tommy Dreamer use weapons during the match. What do you think about an Extreme Rules Royal Rumble? Now, I think the 01, I don't know if it was like themed to be hardcore, but I remember like I've yet to go back and watch the 01 Royal Rumble. I might just do that when I'm reviewing the Royal Rumble pay-per-views on the road to the Rumble in early 2015 here on the channel for WrestleRant. But even still, I do remember like Kane using hardcore weapons and stuff like that, like trash can lids, chairs, 6-4 canes. I don't remember Dreamer using it in the 03 Rumble. I mean, you're probably right. I just haven't gone back and watched it yet. But Battle, like the Royal Rumble, I think is fine on its own. You don't really need a gimmick attached to it, like a hardcore kind of thing. They're really iffy about that because, like I said before, I don't know if the '01 was specifically no disqualification because you fast forward to like the '08 Royal Rumble, Finley I think uses Shillelagh and he was DQ'd from the Royal Rumble when he never got thrown over the top rope. Like that was really fucking weird. That was never really explained. So I don't know what the deal is with that. So I don't know if you can be DQ'd from the Rumble or you can't. I guess they just kind of make up the rules as they go along. I'd be fine with it. I mean, I think Extreme Rules is something like TNA. I think is a prime example. Not to bash on TNA, I'm a big TNA fan, but they're in New York City, they're in Bethlehem, they're doing hardcore matches every single fucking week, and it's to the point where like they don't mean anything anymore. I don't care. Like Magnus and Brand versus Dreamer and Devon last week, I didn't give two shits about. Because for one thing, I'm a huge Tommy Dreamer fan. I've talked about this here on the channel before. But I just don't care to see them in 2014 having hardcore matches on TNA TV, and they're winning too. Like that makes no sense. But to go back to your question, I'd be fine with it. I think it could be very, very fun. I think the '01 Royal Rumble was one of the best Rumbles in history, and that was incorporating hardcore elements. So yeah, I'd be fine with it. But like I said before, though, I don't think it's necessary because the Rumble match itself sells itself, and that the winner goes on and get a championship match at WrestleMania. The second question was, I was a big fan of Andrew Test Martin from his days with the relationship storyline with Stephanie McMahon, all the way back to when he was on the ECW brand in 2007. Do you think that Test could have been a WWE champion if he was still with us today? I talked a little bit about Test in my 2002 SummerSlam review, in my, I think, the Survivor Series '01 review, which will be up here on the channel very, very shortly if you want to check that out. Test was a guy that was very impressive for his size. I don't think he ever got he got the short end of the stick during his stint with the company, and that he was involved in a big storyline with Triple H and Stephanie, like you mentioned in your question. But then after Triple H and Stephanie got involved, and that kind of broke off into its own thing, obviously, in reality and on TV, they never really did anything with Test. He was like IC champion for a while. Like you said, he was on the ECW brand, even dating back to when his final few days with the company in ECW in '07. I don't think he could have been a WWE champion. In the matches that I've seen anyway, in his matches with The Undertaker and at WrestleMania, his match at the '01 Survivor Series, I mean, I was impressed with his work. I think he was a great worker for a guy of his size. He was very impressive. I just couldn't have seen him as being a WWE champion. Like, he had the look and everything. He had the normal build of a guy that Vince, you would think, would want to be WWE champion. And maybe that's the route that they were taking. He very well might have been WWE champion had things not gone the way they did in '01. But personally speaking, I mean, you said if he was still with us today, he passed away in '09, I think, from suicide, which sucks. But if he was still with the company today, I don't think he even would be. I think by '07, I mean, like you said, he was on the ECW brand. In '07, it was still considered. Some people still took that show seriously, even though it wasn't ECW oriented, if you know what I mean. I don't think he could have been a WWE champion in like '07 or '08. He wasn't really on that level. If there was ever one chance he could have been a world champion, it was in '01, 2000 when he was doing this stuff with Stephanie and Triple H. So that being said, though, I don't think I could have ever seen him being world champion at the rate that he was going if he was still if he was still alive and still with the company back in '07, '08, '09. His third question was, with Edge getting inducted in the Hall of Fame and Christian likely to follow once he retires, do you think the remainder two teams of the TLC saga, the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys, will be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame? Absolutely. I think both teams on their own, both the Hardys and the Dudleys, are worthy of a Hall of Fame spot. I've talked about this before, who I could see more likely going into the Hall of Fame on their own, either Jeff or Matt. Definitely Jeff, because he had a better singles career. Matt was very decorated as a singles guy as well, but Jeff Hardy, there's no questioning, was like one of the most over fucking guys in the company from like '08 to 2009, right up until he left the company in late 2009. He was so over and he was so popular with that crowd. So I do think, yeah, as a unit though, I think I could definitely see the Hardy Boys going in when they eventually make their way back to WWE, which I think will be at some point, maybe not some point in the near future, but definitely down the line. Dudley Boys too. The biggest difference between them and Hardy Boys is that I could see Jeff going in on his own at some point. The Dudley Boys, Bubba and Devon, have never really had any much singles career. Like they did for 5 minutes in like '02 when they via the brand split when they were split up, but that didn't work, so they put them back together. So I can't see Bubba Ray going in on his own due to his work in TNA. Like they're never gonna recognize that kind of shit. Devon, same thing. He never did anything on his own aside from the Reverend Devon shtick. So I can only see them going in as a tag team. So absolutely, they're both Hall of Fame bound. I'm glad the Dudleys went into the TNA Hall of Fame. I think they've been in TNA longer than they ever were in WWE, come to think of it, I believe. I'm not exactly sure on that. So they deserve that induction, but I think also accounting their stuff in ECW and their WWE, WWF work, they are also very likely for a Hall of Fame spot down the line. His fourth question was, let's see here, WrestleMania went Hollywood for WrestleMania 21 in 2005. What was one of your favorite commercials that WWE did to promote WrestleMania 21? Let's see. I watched WrestleMania 21 earlier this year on the network. I can't remember all the commercials, but there was one very funny one that actually Kane and Daniel Bryan tried to copy. I mean, they're all, like, obviously they're all based off of movies and stuff like that, like scenes from movies just incorporated with superstars from '05 at the time. The one in the diner, I think it might have been Kurt Angle and Christy Hemme, because I know, like I said before, Kane and Daniel Bryan mimicked it. I think back in 2012 when they were doing the whole Team Hell No tag team. And I remember someone pointed that out to me, that they actually copied that from the original one from Angle and Hemme, I think it was. And they're like making like orgasmic noises and stuff like that, like making very sexual sounds, and like I think from something they're eating or whatever was going on. And then you just see Mae Young like smirking at the bar or whatever it was. That just had me dying. So I thought that was a hilarious commercial. I can't remember many of the others, but I just remember all of them were very, very funny. But that's the one that sticks out in my mind. Nicholas W. also from Facebook, his question was, do you think TNA should stay with Spike TV or go to a different network? I've talked about this at length before, but I'm not a big Spike TV fan. I just don't think the network has much to offer. They do have some good content, but the whole fucking reruns of Cops, like, it's so annoying to me. Like, it's not as bad as, like, I love the USA Network. I know it sounds hypocritical, and I love the USA Network, but I hate, like, the shit that they have on them now. Like they have a lot of good shows on USA, but the show that airs, Todd Crisley, the show that airs after Raw, I fucking despise. But I'm not, like, the whole Cops reruns. Like, Spike is not one of the most compelling networks anyway, or at least nowadays. They have, like, some good movies on, but yeah, no, I'm not a big Spike TV fan. I don't think they've done anything for TNA. TNA is, like I've said before, I talked this at length, and you know, back in August when the whole TV deal was announced and whatever else, or the lack of TV deal, I should say. But TNA has, you know, done so much for Spike TV in promoting Bellator and all these other shows. Like, you hear Mike Tenay on commentary promoting all this other shit on their network. Yet TNA, or Spike TV rather, does nothing in return for these guys. They don't promote anything. That's why they have very little, you know, company awareness, because no one knows this fucking company exists. Because TNA or Spike TV does nothing. I mean, it's also on TNA's fault. I mean, it's Dixie Carter's fault and all the management in TNA. There's a lot of poor mismanagement back, you know, currently in TNA and years ago and even now. But I don't think Spike TV has helped that whatsoever. So I'm really hoping, I'm not saying that I want to see Spike TV not sign TNA. I don't want to say that at all. I don't want to see that at all. But I do want to see TNA land with a channel that can not only, you know, air on most networks, because I know, like, when Superstars was in WGN America, a network actually that was rumored to be hosting TNA, which I don't think is the case anymore. Because I think WGN recently announced they're going to be having a new reality wrestling series. Whatever it is, I'm not exactly sure. With that being said, though, WGN America, when it hosted WWE Superstars, was a channel that I never got. I mean, I have Comcast, it's different for everybody, but I never got that channel. And granted, it wasn't like SmackDown or anything. It wasn't like the second tier, or it wasn't Monday Night Raw. It was the throwaway show, and always has been. So it didn't really matter all that much, and I would just go watch it on YouTube. But TNA, I mean, that's their one and only show. That's their flagship show. They need to make sure it gets on a network where it has eyes on it and it's exposed and people can watch it and stuff like that. So that being said, I don't want to see them with Spike TV, because Spike TV is a network that I have and whatever, which is good, but they just don't do the best job of promoting TNA whatsoever. So I want to see them land with a network. What network exactly, I don't know, but a network that's going to be able to help them, you know, expose their company a little bit more, get their name out there, and actually do them some justice, and not, you know, just completely forget. I mean, Spike, or TNA rather, is one of the most highest rated shows on that network, yet that network does nothing to promote them whatsoever. So I don't want to go on a huge rant about this, but no, I don't think TNA should stay with Spike TV, but I do want to see them land a TV deal, because like I said before, I'm a big TNA fan. I would hate to see them go out of business or without a TV deal, because then I wouldn't be able to watch anymore. So next question comes from Paul S. First question was, now that Finn Balor, or I think it's Balor, not Balor, right? I think that's how they pronounced it last week in NXT, aka Prince Devitt, has made his long-anticipated debut, when do you think Kevin Owens, aka the artist formerly known as Kevin Steen, will make his own debut? I think it's highly rumored right now, and it's looking like it will happen, that Steen will be making his debut either at the next TakeOver special on December 12th, or December 11th, I'm sorry. Either at that special, or the next night of the tapings. Like, Hideo Itami, a.k.a. Kenta, made his debut at the last TakeOver special, and then Prince Devitt. I don't think he debuted the next night at the next night's tapings. I think he debuted at the next set of tapings. But Cena's been signed to the company at like almost a little over a month from the other two guys. So I think he's bound to make his debut at any point within the next month or so at the very earliest. So within a month from now, I think I could see him on NXT TV. His next question was, is Triple H approaching Dolph Ziggler last week a sign that he'll be pushed to the top again after being punished? That's a good question. I mean, I'm liking the more airtime that Ziggler's getting. I mean, I'm not a fan of the fact that he's still losing matches while Intercontinental Champion. Like, they will push him. They'll give him 2 clean wins in a row over Cesaro at Hell in a Cell. And then they'll just go back to not burying him, but treating him like a load of shit as champion, which makes it doesn't do any justice for him or that title that he's supposed to be wearing, which essentially means nothing. But at least he's brought back some meaning to that title because that same champion is going to be involved in this big multi-man match at Survivor Series with Team Cena and Team Authority. But I don't think it's a sign that he's going to be pushed again. Someone else asked me about a Dolph Ziggler heel turn, which I'll approach and I'll talk about in a little bit. Like, I don't want to say that he's going to be on his way to the World Championship. I don't think that's in the plans at all. I honestly can't see Ziggler entering World Championship picture at any point on the road to WrestleMania. Maybe afterwards, but I just can't see him facing Brock Lesnar or whoever or whatever else, who I assume is going to be holding that championship till WrestleMania. So, I mean, he's got the Intercontinental Championship. It's not like he's not doing anything right now. At least they're doing something with him and his feud with the Authority. Because if you remember that whole face-off with Triple H, I noticed this on Twitter last week on Raw. I mean, it brought back memories of, I mean, when the Authority first formed at SummerSlam 2013, I think it was on WWE.com or their YouTube channel. I can't remember what exactly it was. But they did an angle where they were asking people backstage what their thoughts on this were, and Dolph Ziggler said, I never trusted Triple H to begin with. And that's when they started punishing Dolph Ziggler in storyline and also in reality. He was kind of, ironically enough, depushed after that. And, he was losing to the Shield all these weeks and whatever, and never really led to anything either. That's what really bothered me. Because I'm thinking he's going to be involved in this big multi-man match against the Authority at last year's Survivor Series, and that never really happened, so I'm glad they're bringing that back. Even though they didn't mention the history between the two from last year, I'm still glad that Ziggler's involved in the match. I mean, I think he's not going to reach, at this point in time anyway, I don't think Ziggler's going to reach beyond a certain level. I think the push as Intercontinental Champion and all the TV time he's been getting, the main event of SmackDown last week, a show that doesn't really mean much, but still, it's something. I think that's the highest he's going to get in terms of push right now. I just can't see him being pushed at any point within the next few months on the road to WrestleMania, with all the part-timers coming back and Brock Lesnar being champion and him never being on TV. So I think this is as big as it's going to get for Dolph Ziggler at any point on the road to WrestleMania. And his next question was, since most of the time he jobs mainly to get new stars over, do you think it'll be wise for Zack Ryder to move to either TNA, Ring of Honor, or Lucha Underground? Maybe. I mean, there were some rumors over the weekend that Zack Ryder was going to be released. I'm a big Zack Ryder fan. He was actually injured. He was not getting released, but some people just jumped to conclusions. But the thing about Zack Ryder is that I just can't see him. The thing about his character, because I think he's a very good worker and he's very underrated in that sense, but his gimmick, although I enjoy it, is very limited. Hence why, I don't want to say he's stale, but I mean, there's really not much more you can do with his character beyond a certain level unless you make him more serious. I don't think turning him heel is the answer. I think you just need to take his character more seriously, and he's dropped a lot of aspects of his Long Island IC character. He's not doing the sunglasses or the headband or whatever else anymore. I mean, it doesn't even matter because he's rarely on TV. But that being said, I don't see him being signed to WWE forever because he's not doing anything with them right now. Neither with guys like Brodus Clay. 3MB they released anyway earlier this year. And they were on TV every week, even more so than Zack Ryder. So the thing with the companies that you mentioned, TNA, Ring of Honor, I can't see him, definitely not in Lucha Underground. Then again, I may not have been able to see John Morrison there, and he's like one of their shining stars, so maybe I take that back. I just can't see him in TNA or Ring of Honor because, like I said before, most of what his character is all about is the character. I mean, he's a very good wrestler, but he won't really have an identity because all he's about is like property of WWE. Maybe it's not. Maybe all of that stuff is his, but for the most part, I assume it's copyrighted to WWE, so we couldn't be able to do that in other companies. But like a guy like Kurt Hawkins, who used to tag team with all those years ago, I think he can make a great indie guy, like over here in the Northeast area. I don't want to sound biased because I live in the Northeast. But like Kurt Hawkins runs his own wrestling school. I think he might do indies from time to time in the Northeast area, in the New York area to be exact. So I see him more of a guy doing that kind of stuff as opposed to something in TNA. TNA is a fucking sinking ship right now anyway. I don't want to hate on the company, but they're not doing too well. So anyone that signs to TNA is not the wisest person in the world at this point in time. But Ring of Honor, maybe Lucha Underground, but he's a good enough worker that I think he could flourish there. But like I said before, it's all about the gimmick. It's all about the gimmick and it's all about the character. So I don't know how well he could fare for himself in any one of those companies. His final question was, if you were to future endeavor anyone right now in the WWE, who would it be and why? So normally I don't like a lot of these questions, if only because I don't want to see anyone out of a job. I wouldn't want to fire anyone, hence why I wouldn't want to be the boss of any corporation. I would hate to fire anyone, lay anyone off. But if I had to future endeavor anyone in the current WWE, David Otunga. I know that comes as a shock to many people who think this guy's still employed. I mean, that's the same thing that goes through my head every single day when I see guys on TV that aren't on TV, that aren't getting TV time. And Otunga obviously hasn't been on TV at all, but that's the exact point. The guy's been on TV maybe once in the last 2 years. He wrestled his final singles match on Raw, and I think in March of fucking 2013. He wrestled in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania this year, in the Honor the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania 30. What reason, I have no idea. And then he disappeared again. It's not even like he's doing anything. I know he's married to Jennifer Hudson, and maybe he's doing magazine covers and stuff like that, but that aside, the guy's not doing anything. He's just collecting a paycheck every single week. And even a guy like JTG was more talented than David Otunga. The guy sucks. I mean, he had decent mic skills like when he was a part of the Nexus, but that's the only kind of role that he flourishes in. I thought the lawyer stuff was entertaining, but that was also very limited. That got old after a while. But the guy's just not a good worker. The guy sucks, and why he's still employed when he's not even on TV at all in the last 2 years is mind-boggling to me. You lay off guys like Drew McIntyre, but you keep like a David Otunga. Like, to me, that makes no sense. So if I had to future endeavor anyone, it would have to be David Otunga. Even though I'm a big Nexus fan, I would lay that guy off in 2 seconds. He's not doing anything for WWE. At John Woodman, 1987, his question was, do you see Bad News Barrett having another good run when he finally returns? I do. I mean, it's really hard to say, because I think the last few times that he's been injured, when he was injured first in February of 2012, he was having a really good role for himself. He was fresh off that feud with Randy Orton. He was rumored to be winning the Money in the Bank briefcase at WrestleMania 28, I think it was that year. And then he got injured, and he came back, and he was, he had some momentum as the British Brawler and whatever in that gimmick, but they just never did anything with him. He was just facing jobbers. He was IC champion, but they booked him like shit. That title didn't mean anything. He didn't mean anything. So it's really hard to say. I mean, I'm fearful that they'll bring him back and they won't do anything, even though he was on a massive, momentum wave earlier this year before he got injured. But even still, though, when he comes back, I'm hoping that he's going to have a good run in the company. I mean, I can only hope. But even so, though, I think he's talented enough that he can have a good run when he comes back. He was so over as Bad News Barrett before he left that I think it was only a matter of time before he turns babyface. He's a guy that I've said time and time again over the last 4 or 5 years that, yes, he's a much more natural heel. So is Dolph Ziggler, but that guy gets cheered like crazy, and the reactions kind of warrants him as being a babyface, and I think Bad News Barrett is the same thing. Like the Bad News gimmick, it might not work as a babyface, but you'll never know unless you try it, so I think he could flourish as a babyface if they were to turn him at any point when he comes back. So I do think he's going to have another good run when he comes back, hopefully if booked properly. At Cody Collier 12, his question was, what have you enjoyed watching WWE more this year, the matches or the segments, and why? Good question. I think the last year in wrestling, 2014, has not been great. I think WrestleMania was amazing, SummerSlam was amazing, but I mean the consistent programming as a whole, like Raw, there's only been maybe 1 or 2 times in the last year since the start of this year that I think were just consistently entertaining. Like on the road to WrestleMania was not great. It wasn't until like the month before Mania that programming really started heating up. The spring wasn't memorable. The summer I thought was great, and everything since then, since like late August, has been shit. I mean, it's improved a little bit since Hell in a Cell, but not by much. So, that said, though, what do I like more about this year? The matches or the segments is your question. I just can't remember many segments that left me wanting more. I mean, there's been a lot of good segments this year, like surprisingly enough, the Brie and Stephanie stuff I thought was very good. What else this year? I mean, the Daniel Bryan and Triple H segment from earlier this year, I think it was right before WrestleMania. I thought that was stellar. There's been a few other segments. The Cena and Paul Heyman thing right before Night of Champions, that was very good. But I can name maybe 3 or 4 segments off the top of my head, like I just did, that were actually very, very good, that have me, that were memorable. You know what I mean? That will be looked upon. Like when you look back at the year of 2014, what will you remember more? The segments or the matches? Most easily the matches. I think we've had a lot of great matches this year, both from the main roster and NXT. There's amazing matches in every single NXT special. The last 3 I thought were great. The Fatal 4-Way at the last special in September I thought was one of the best matches of the year. The Usos and the Wyatt family, tremendous match. The matches at WrestleMania between the triple threat match as well as, or maybe that was the, oh no, I'm sorry, Daniel Bryan and Triple H was also amazing too. Shield and Evolution, Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan, Bray Wyatt, or the Wyatt family and the Shield. All these amazing matches. So easily, I think what I've enjoyed more about this year in WWE in 2014 is easily the matches. At Swagzio, his question was, how do you see John Cena versus Ryback match ending tonight on Raw? So, of course, it's being filmed tonight before Raw and whatever else, so I can't really speak for what will happen. So, I mean, if you're watching this after the fact, it might not really matter. And I'm taping this, like I said before Raw, so I don't really, I don't know what's going to happen. If you're watching this afterwards, it doesn't really matter. But I don't want to see a straight one-on-one matchup, if only because Ryback's a babyface. I don't want to see John Cena in any way derail his momentum since coming back as a babyface. I think Ryback's been on a roll of momentum in the last 2 weeks. I don't know how it's going to end. Maybe it just ends with the Authority interfering and attacking both guys, which wouldn't make sense from a storyline standpoint because Kane's been scouting Ryback. Maybe Kane comes down, maybe the Authority comes down, and they attack John Cena, and it's going to look like Ryback is a part of the Authority, only for him to turn on them in the end. I can kind of see that happening. It's really hard to say. Why they're doing this match in the first place, I have no idea. And it wouldn't make sense any other way than to have Ryback join him join Team Cena at Survivor Series. So, how do I see it ending? Probably no contest. It would make absolutely no sense for John Cena to straight up beat Ryback clean in a one-on-one matchup 2 weeks after the guy returned to a massive pop as a babyface. So, probably if as a no contest or double DQ or whatever, via interference from the Authority, if I had to take a guess. At Thomas B96, his question was, where does Daniel Bryan's WrestleMania moment, his victory at WrestleMania 30, rank on the all-time WrestleMania moment list in your opinion? That's a very good question. I mean, there's been, needless to say, so many fucking amazing moments in WrestleMania history in the last 30 years. Michaels winning the title at WrestleMania 12, Stone Cold Steve Austin winning the title at WrestleMania 14, the whole Shawn Michaels and Undertaker series of matches in 25 and 26. I mean, there's at least one or two moments from every single WrestleMania that will stand out in everyone's mind for years to come. Andre being slammed by Hogan at WrestleMania 3, Steamboat versus Savage, all these other moments. The reuniting of Randy Savage and Ultimate Warrior, there was the match of Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth at WrestleMania 8, I think it was. Or no, I'm sorry, I think it was WrestleMania 7, actually. I lied. But even still, though, I do think, or no, maybe it was WrestleMania 8. I think it was WrestleMania 8. I think I lied there. But anyway, though, I do think that in the long scheme, in the long spectrum of WrestleMania moments, Daniel Bryan's title victory will be remembered, if only because it was built up over a long period of time. People really wanted to see it happen, and it did, to a major pop. But, that's, like I said before, a really good question. It probably wouldn't rank too high on that list, if only because I think if you're going to look back at WrestleMania 30, what will you remember more? I think it's even a better question. What will you remember more from WrestleMania 30? Daniel Bryan winning the title or the streak ending? Easily, without a doubt, the streak ending. So I think that kind of overshadows Daniel Bryan's victory, unfortunately. But I don't think it's going to rank low unless I'd probably put it in the medium. I wouldn't rank it above like Stone Cold Steve Austin winning his first title or Michaels winning his first title. I mean, time will tell. It all depends. I mean, if Daniel Bryan retires tomorrow, then maybe. I don't know. If Daniel Bryan goes on to become a legend in the business, then people will look back at that WrestleMania and say that was his turning point in his career. That was the peak of his career. But, I mean, if he retires tomorrow, maybe an afterthought. I don't know. But good question, though. That's the best I can answer it. At Brad Bradar, his question was, would you feel about a Dolph Ziggler heel turn at Survivor Series? It's interesting you bring that up. I haven't seen anyone propose that so far, so good question. How would I feel about that? The guy is so over as a babyface. And I think, like Bad News Barrett, like Wade Barrett, he is more natural as a heel. But the problem with that is that as a heel, the guy got no heat. The only reason why Dolph Ziggler was ever over as a heel was because he had Vicky Guerrero, the heat magnet, in his corner for 2.5 years. So, I mean, I think on his own as a heel, and remember, as a heel, even after he broke off from Vicky as a heel, he was still with Big E and AJ. He was still getting good heat at that time as a heel. So, I mean, even at that time, people just didn't want to boo Dolph Ziggler because they came to respect him, and that's why he turned babyface in the first place. Because he's so great at what he does, people just have no choice but to cheer him. And I think the biggest difference between him and Punk, who I also think is a guy that can never really turn fully heel because people will cheer him regardless. Punk can make people hate him. Dolph Ziggler never really had that tribute. I mean, I know he used the hashtag heel, whatever else, but he never really had that attribute as a heel. I mean, he has very good mic skills, but they were never to the point where I wanted, like, he made me hate him. Like, Punk had that effect on me. Ziggler never really had that effect on a lot of people. He great heel, and as a he was great in the mic, but he never really had that effect that you want to see him get his ass kicked. He did it sometimes, but it was never really consistent. So I don't think I'd be in favor of a Dolph Ziggler heel turn. Like, if he joined the Authority, in my opinion, that would make no sense. I do see the Authority winning at Survivor Series. I don't want to see it happen, but I do see it happening. But that being said, I don't want to see it come like that in that fashion via Dolph Ziggler heel turn, because I don't think that really benefits him at all, because I think that's what killed Randy Orton, because I think in aligning with the Authority back in 2013, that's what really killed Randy Orton as a heel, because he's so much better off on his own. And then aligning with the Authority was what killed his momentum. And I think Dolph Ziggler is the same thing. He won't get a reaction. People won't give two shits about him because they want to cheer him. So no, I really don't want to see that happen. I mean, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world because at least you get more TV time. But I know it worked for Rollins, but Dolph Ziggler I think is much better off as a babyface for right now anyway. His second question was, since you started watching WWE, what has been your favorite? What has been the best year you've seen and the worst year as a fan for you? So best year, I mean, I started watching, like I say in every single video, I started watching in April 2008. So we're talking 08, 09, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014 here. So 7 different years. Best year, I think it's a toss-up between 08 and 2011. 08 I have more fond memories of because that's when I started watching. But with 08 and 2011, we had 2 amazing feuds, 2 of the best feuds in recent memory in the last 10 years, in my opinion. 08, we had Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho on the Raw brand. SmackDown, we had Edge and Undertaker. And in 2011, on SmackDown, we had Randy Orton and Christian. And on Raw, we had CM Punk and John Cena. So I would probably, of those 2 years, I would have to go with 2011 as the best year. Actually, maybe I take that back, because I think that's my favorite year as a fan, 2011. I've been asked this question before. I think 2011 was my favorite year as a fan because I have more fond memories of that year, even though it wasn't the best year. I mean, 27 sucked. WrestleMania 27 was not a good WrestleMania, obviously, and then that whole fall season was pretty shitty too. But, I mean, the moments, that entire summer was one of the best summers in recent memory. So for that reason alone, people look back on that year as with fond memories for the most part. But 08 as a whole, I think, was better with WrestleMania and all these other, everything else that happened that year with Michaels and HBK and Taker and Undertaker and Edge and all these other stuff. So best year as a fan, probably have to go with 08, even though my favorite year was 2011. I think there's a difference there. Worst year, 09 and 2010 were not good. 2012, I think is very underappreciated in my opinion. I think the whole reign of CM Punk, the rise of The Shield, the rise of Daniel Bryan, everything else that happened that year I thought was great. So 2012 would not have to be the worst. 2013, I think, had its moments too. The whole summer I thought was great. The fall sucked. The road to WrestleMania sucked, but that whole summer was great. 09 and 2010. 2010, we had the Nexus. So maybe 09. I'd probably have to go with 09, if only because maybe I'm the only one that thinks this. I haven't seen a lot of people that share the same opinion with me on this. And that I think 09 was all about Cena, Orton, and H. It was all about those guys for the entire year. And over on SmackDown, I mean, we had Punk and Hardy, but that was the only real shining light of that year, aside from Michaels and Taker. I mean, we had that amazing match, obviously, and the feud was good too, but it didn't really last much longer before they, parted ways. I wasn't a big fan of the DX reunion with the whole thing with Hornswoggle. I thought that was dumb. I mean, it had its moments. It was funny at times, but on the most part, it was so watered down from your Attitude Era stuff, and 06 stuff. But, yeah, I'd probably have to go with 09 because that entire year was all about Orton, Cena, and H, a feud that we had seen a million fucking times before, and I was so sick of it by the end of that year. So the next question comes from @RJ Marceau, my co-host in WrestleRant Radio, obviously. If you had to book someone as of right now as the WWE World Heavyweight Champion besides Brock Lesnar, who would it be? Good question. Daniel Bryan being out, Roman Reigns being gone. Right now, Cena, no, because we've seen that a million times before. Maybe Randy Orton because he's doing so well for himself right now. But again, we've seen that so many times before when he was just champion earlier this year. If anyone, I'd have to go with Seth Rollins. I mean, I wouldn't want to see Seth Rollins win that or, cash in his briefcase and then win that title at any point in the future because I think Lesnar, like I've said a million times before, should be the champion going into WrestleMania at WrestleMania 31. So I think if I had, let's say Brock Lesnar was stripped of the title tonight on Raw. If they had to crown a new interim champion, I'd have to go with Seth Rollins. The guy is undoubtedly the #1 heel right now, especially with Randy Orton turning babyface, is undoubtedly the #1 heel in the company, hands down. So I think he deserves it. He's been doing some amazing work over the last 6 months as a heel. He had, he's an amazing in-ring worker. He's improved leaps and bounds on the mic since his heel turn in June. So if I had to crown a new champion right now, I'd have to go Seth Rollins. Next question at Eli the Big Guy. His question was, which unlikely candidate would you like to see in the Hall of Fame soon? Good question. Probably Jim Johnson. I talked about this at length before, but I think Jim Johnson, the music composer, deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame for all the work that he's done with the company over the years in producing the theme songs of The Undertaker, DX, Stone Cold, the list goes on and on and on. He's so underappreciated. He's never brought up. I know they did kind of a DVD on him a couple of years ago. I think it was earlier this year, The Sounds of Music or whatever it was called. That was something, but I mean, I still think we have yet to get anyone in the Hall of Fame that's like not a talent, but I mean, we've had celebrities and superstars and managers and stuff like that, but we have yet to get anyone in the Hall of Fame that's behind the scenes, and I'm hoping that they open a wing for that in the Hall of Fame. Maybe not next year. I'm hoping next year because Ultimate Warrior kind of mentioned something in his Hall of Fame speech last year that someone from behind the scenes should be the first to be inducted with all the things that he's done with the company over the years. So I would love to see Jim Johnson inducted into that category of the Hall of Fame, if only because of all of his contributions to the business, WWE specifically, over the last 15, 20 years or so. Rick Rude I also put down. I don't know if it's unlikely, but I don't think by this point, I'm very surprised he hasn't made it in. Maybe because, and someone pointed this out to me, because, he backstabbed WWE and all this other stuff back in the 90s when he jumped ship to WCW, and then he passed away. So the chances of him being inducted now are even less likely. I don't know who would decide something like that if he was going to go into the Hall of Fame. I don't know. Someone from his family would decide. Like I know with Owen Hart, he's another unlikely guy that I would love to see in the Hall of Fame. And he'd probably take the #1 spot in this question with his wife and whatever else. And she doesn't want him to be in the Hall of Fame because of what happened with them in the company and whatever else. I understand where she's coming from, but I do think she should kind of put that aside to put Owen Hart where he deserves in the Hall of Fame. So Owen Hart probably, but Rick Rude is a guy that I'm surprised hasn't made it in by now. Maybe because he turned on the company back in, like I said, in the 90s, and maybe that's why, I don't know. But I'd have to go with Rick Rude. At Zach Donegan, his question was, favorite match you've seen from WCW and ECW? WCW, I don't know. I don't watch many ECW or WCW matches. I'm hoping to change that and watching more pay-per-views on the network in the very near future. ECW, I think I watched a match. I can't remember even what it was. WCW, I know I've seen a lot of matches between Eddie and a lot of the Cruiserweight stuff I've seen. A great match between Eddie and Ray from so many years ago. I forgot what it was. Over the Cruiserweight Championship. It might have been at Halloween Havoc 1998, I want to say. Maybe wrong there. But that was a great match. I'd probably have to go with that. ECW, again, haven't seen many matches from ECW. I don't know if I've seen any ECW matches at all from the original ECW, obviously. I don't know. Can't tell you, to be quite honest with you, but probably, actually, I did see like a Jericho McFoley match actually from like ECW or something, so I guess I'd go with that. It's the only ECW match I've seen, but I'm hoping to change that in coming months with the network. The second question was, do you think ECW changed the landscape of wrestling as a whole, and do you think, and do you think wrestling could have thrived without it? I do think it changed the landscape of wrestling in terms of like incorporating hardcore elements into wrestling, because we never really saw much of that before the incorporation of ECW in the late 90s or in the mid 90s. So I do think it changed the landscape of wrestling, kind of influenced the Attitude Era and whatever else in the late 90s. I do believe that with as a fact. I think some people from WWE have even admitted to that. I don't think they've blatantly said Attitude Era is a ripoff of ECW, but I do think some elements from ECW were definitely a part of the Attitude Era. But second part of your question, do I think wrestling could have thrived without it? Yeah, wrestling wouldn't have died without ECW, but I do think it changed the business for the better and made people look at wrestling in a completely different way in terms of hardcore wrestling. So I do think wrestling would have been fun without it, but it definitely changed the business for the better. Kind of to tie back to your first question. At Iceman123, his question was, will Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt ever happen at a WrestleMania? Probably not. I could have seen that happening when the streak was still intact, but with the streak being done and Undertaker probably having one more match left in him, if anything, it should be against Sting. A Bray Wyatt Undertaker match would be amazing in terms of from a storyline standpoint, but they've damaged Bray Wyatt so much. I don't know if it's a possibility right now, but it would be a good feud nevertheless. I just don't see it happening, unfortunately. At Ambrose311, his question was, if you could choose between having a one more Stone Cold match or a John Cena going heel turn, which one would you choose and why? Great question. Probably John Cena going heel. I could live without Stone Cold being in another match. I mean, I think he had the perfect send-off of WrestleMania 19, his match against The Rock. it's a guilty pleasure of mine to see Stone Cold in a match one more time, because as a fan, I've yet to see him in action. As you know, since I started watching in 2008, I would love to see him in one more match. But I think John Cena going heel is a more long-term thing that I really want to see happen at some point. Would it succeed? Probably not. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, if ever. But it would be a cool concept, nevertheless, to see kind of transpire. And if it didn't work, you turn him back. I don't understand that. That's what I don't understand about the whole Cena heel turn thing. I mean, if they really wanted to do it, just do it. If it didn't work, then just turn him back. I think it's that easy. But that's just my opinion. John Knapp, 17, the artist formerly known as @Heel by Design on the Twitter. His question was, what would be your ideal card for WrestleMania 31? I hate to say this to you, John, but I can't really give you an answer here because I want to try to do this as a WrestleMania roundtable on WrestleRant Radio at some point, giving my thoughts on the card, or what the card should be for WrestleMania 31. We're going to try to do it right after TLC, so probably the last show that we have on campus, December 16, 2014. Bookmark the date, remember it, save the dates, because we're going to try to do a WrestleMania roundtable where we predict the card for WrestleMania 31. We won't know until after TLC, after Survivor Series, after everything goes down. So look forward to that. So I hate to say that to you and hate to kind of dodge your question, but I want to give my thoughts on WrestleMania 31 card in a month from now on WrestleRant Radio. So with that being said, I thank you folks for watching today's video. Always appreciate it. If you want to send in a question, you can find me on Facebook @GrahamGSMMatthews. You can leave a comment on the wall or even leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Sunday nights, or you can follow me on Twitter @WrestleRant and tweet me with the hashtag #GSM, or you can even leave a comment down below in the comment section and make sure I incorporate all the questions that are in the comment section and do it. I'll be sure to incorporate in next week's video. So that being said, folks, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Like I said before, all support is greatly appreciated. I'm Graham Matthews, and I'll catch you guys next week.